Welcome to the 9th Annual David L. Jannetta Distinguished Lecture Series in War, Literature, and the Arts. I'd like to begin the evening by thanking our sponsor, Mr. David Jannetta, from the class of '75, and the USAFA Endowment for making this annual lecture possible. I'd also like to welcome our distinguished guests this evening, the Superintendent, Lieutenant General Johnson, the Dean of the Faculty, Brigadier General Armacost, the 10th Air-Based Wing Commander, Colonel Dunn. Finally, we welcome all permanent professors, department heads, and other special guests in attendance. Since the inception of this lecture, it's been customary to invite Mr. Jannetta to introduce our guest speaker, but he's unable to attend this year's lecture. In his absence, it's now my distinct pleasure to introduce our 2015 Jannetta speaker. Widely recognized as one of the most talented soldier poets to emerge from the Iraq War, Brian Turner served 7 years in the U.S. Army, including 1 year as an infantry team leader in Iraq with the 3rd Stryker Brigade Combat Team. He also deployed to Bosnia-Herzegovina from 1999 to 2000 with the 10th Mountain Division. Brian has joked that prior to entering the Army, he worked hard to establish himself as a starving poet, earning a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of Oregon. Before enlisting, he wrote 7 complete manuscripts, yet he was unable to publish any of those. The experience of going to war irrevocably changed Brian, his life, and his writing career. In theater, he became a self-proclaimed poet of witness. Brian has said that he wrote as rapidly as possible during his time in Iraq, not knowing if on any given day that would be his last. Some of the finest poems that emerged from his combat tours appear in Here, Bullet, his acclaimed first collection, which won the 2005 Beatrice Hawley Award, the New York Times Editor's Choice Selection, and the 2007 Poets Prize. His second collection, Phantom Noise, details, among other things, the challenges faced by returning troops in the aftermath of war. That book was shortlisted for the 2010 T.S. Eliot Prize in Poetry. Brian is also the author of the acclaimed memoir, My Life as a Foreign Country, which earned a spot on Powell's Best Nonfiction of 2014 list. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to a great friend and frequent guest of the Academy, Mr. Brian Turner.
If a body is what you want, then here is bone and gristle and flesh. Here is the clavicle snapped wish, the aorta's opened valves, the leap thought makes at the synaptic gap. Here is the adrenaline rush you crave, that inexorable flight, that insane puncture into heat and blood. And I dare you to finish what you've started, because here, bullet, here is where I complete the word you bring hissing through the air. Here is where I moan the barrel's cold esophagus, triggering my tongue's explosives for the rifling I have inside of me. Each twist of the round spun deeper, because here, bullet, here's where the world ends, every time. It's like, what the hell is that all about, right? I've been trying to figure that out for years, to be honest. That poem, of all my poems, still holds a lot of mystery for me. It's a well that continues to draw water for me, psychologically, emotionally, intellectually. I wrote that poem And I folded up, I wrote it, I was in Iraq, I was in, I should say from 2003 to 2004, I was an infantryman with the 3rd Stryker Brigade out of Fort Lewis, Washington. And we crossed the border on the 3rd of December of 2003 and came back just before Halloween of the following year, 2004. So just under a year. And around February or so, I was listening to Queens of the Stone Age. Some of you might know that group. And more like wallpaper sound to block out the noise of the world. It was on a post in Mosul, FOB Mares. And I wrote that poem about 12 to 15 minutes. It's the quickest poem I've probably ever written of this length. And it's verbatim what it was. There were 2 or 3 lines that I quickly excised and I changed one word. And then I folded it up, put it in a Ziploc bag, and I carried it in my chest front pocket the rest of the time that I was in country. And I knew the mortuary affairs guy. So like, if I were killed, I knew there was a possibility that my body might be, might go through his office, and he might be the first to read that poem in a different version of my life. And I've told that story for quite a while. After a couple years after this book came out, I told that story, and then I realized that it wasn't Queens of the Stone Age. I was being thrown by the music I was listening to. That wasn't the insistent rock beat. It's kind of this heavy rock song. And what it was Phil Levine, who was my teacher at Fresno State. And I remember walking to class one night when I had hair halfway down my back and I had a little scuba diver earring, and I played in a band called Los Muertos Muchachos, like the dead guys, And I was bass player in the band, and and this friend of mine, Andres Montoya, he walked up and he shoved this poem in my hand, and I knew there was some famous poet guy that had like National Book Award and stuff like that, but I'd never read a single poem of his. I just knew he was some famous guy, And I read this poem, and it really stuck with me, and it starts like this, and I share it with you because I think you'll get a sense of the power of language. Sometimes we get thrown by the word poetry, I like the idea of rock and roll, but poetry just sounds like cherry trees blossoming and stuff like that. But it's really just, that's a longer story. I'll just stay on point. That poem of Phil Levine's is called They Feed They Lion, and it starts like this. Out of burlap sacks, out of bearing butter, out of black bean and wet slate bread, out of the acids of rage, the candor of tar, out of creosote, gasoline, drive shafts, wooden dollies, they lie and grow. So my poem, and the poem goes on from there, right? If a body is what you want, then here is bone and gristle and flesh. Here is the clavicle snapped wish, the aorta's open valves, the leap thought makes at the synaptic gap. Here is the adrenaline rush you crave. You can hear the music, right? So it wasn't Queens of the Stone Age. It was our former poet laureate who sadly passed away not too long ago. How are you guys doing tonight? I'm going to promise a couple of things. I'm going to try to promise a couple of things. I'm not going to be yelling poems at you like that first one. That's very unlike most of my poems. And I'm also, I'm going to try not to lecture, I'll take off my jacket. That'll help me. Is that okay? I should have asked the bosses and stuff. But okay. I'm going to have a drink of water because all of you good folks can't, and it just feels kind of special. Yeah. I got to remember how to turn this light on up here. I might need your help, actually. I don't know. You told me, I think I remember how to do this. I got it. There's no help back there. No. It's phenomenal. These guys are all over it. I'm going to read a couple poems, and then maybe I just might share a story of me doing kind of stupid things, and that might be instructive, hopefully. And then I'd like to read a few passages from my recent memoir, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound like a good plan to you guys? Yeah? What about you guys in the back? You guys all right up there? Rocking? Okay. Before I start, though, I would like to say my deep thanks to several folks. And I would start with Dave Jannetta for giving back to the Academy. I don't know if you know his history, but I encourage you to look into it and what he's done for the Academy. I'm grateful for it myself, and I know that in a larger sense, the Jannetta Lectures over a series of time and years are a very meaningful gift to the Academy and to thought among the core of leadership in America for the future. Also, Lieutenant General Johnson, Brigadier General Armacost, Colonel Dunn, Colonel Harrington, Lieutenant Colonel Pipes, my longtime friends and colleagues, Donald Anderson and Tom McGuire, writers both, as well as all who were helping me to navigate my way around the Academy this week, which I've been late twice already. I feel like I think I owe about 1,400 push-ups right now. It's like, it's impossible. I'd also like to put a shout out to some former cadets here who then later taught here, who've had amazing careers. Jesse Goolsby, who's got a fine book I recommend you check out. He's one of your colleagues in the future. Maybe you'll work with him at some point. But regardless, it's a fine book. It's called I'd Walk With My Friends If I Could Find Them. Also, I know it sounds funny, but read it and you'll laugh in parts maybe, but there's a lot of difficult things happen in that book. Brandon Lingle and Jay Mode, who are also friends that I've been fortunate enough to call friends because of the invitations here to the Academy. And of course, to all of you good folks tonight. The titles colonels and generals, and some of those titles will belong to you. And how will you wear them? What will you do with those, with that responsibility, with that privilege? I was an enlisted soldier. I purposely, with a master's degree in hand, went in as an enlisted soldier, And I don't mean this in any way to start a fight or anything like that with you guys, because I think I'm vastly outnumbered. And you guys are much better at standoff distance than I am too, and I'm slow, But I come from a family that has a chip on our shoulders. I come from a long line of sergeants. To turn that on its head, for me, it's an honor to be here as a former enlisted person and to be able to share some stories with you that maybe in some way here and there for some of you, you might find useful as you do take on that privilege and that responsibility, that mantle of leadership. So I see one guy leaving already. It's like, I'm just going to make it awkward as possible if someone leaves, If you're in the front, it's going to be pretty merciless. I'm just letting you know now, Be brave, do it anyways. But thank you all. Thank you for having me here. I'm going to do one more housekeeping thing, which is they told you to turn off your phones. I wonder if I could break protocol and have you turn your phones back on so I could give you my phone number. Yeah, this is crazy. Actually, very crazy. But I'm going to do it. This is my phone number, impossibly large. Somehow I thought this was a good idea because of the stabilizing camera in here. I just got this a few days ago. Are you guys ready? And what I'm hoping you'll do is feel free to text me, be like, that poem was pretty cool. Somebody from Minnesota just called me. You're out there, man. Don't do it. Someone else, 210, but I'm turning it out. Texas, stop. Don't do it. Don't do it. But, feel free to text and be involved in this. I know you can't shout out necessarily during one of the poems or something, but if there's something meaningful to you or you just think it's bullshit, call me on it. I'm fine with that. Just have a reason for it, which I'm sure you will. But also, the reason I give you that phone number is I assume you'll lose it, As, time goes by, you get a new phone and all that. But hopefully the seed will be there so that in the future someday, if I can help with something, some project you have to help service members, veterans and their families, if there's any way that I can help in the future, you can contact me. Usually through the publisher is the easiest way. Any of the publishers, send an email to them, say, hey, this dude Turner showed up at the Academy, said to contact him, and they'll forward it on to me, and if I can help, I'll roll up my sleeves and do what I can, But the main thing is to do something, because no one else will if you don't yourself, Insignia. She hides under a Dusenhaft this time, sleeping on a roll of foam draped in mosquito netting. Sandflies hover throughout the night. She sleeps under vehicle exhaust and heat dreaming of mortars buried beside her, 3 stripes painted on each cold tube, a rocker of yellow hung below. It's you she's dreaming of, Sergeant. She'll dream of you for years to come, if she makes it out of this country alive, which she probably will. You will be the fire and the hovering breath, not the sniper, not the bomber in the streets, you. And so I'm here to ask for this one night's reprieve. Let her sleep tonight. Let her sleep. Pause a moment under the gibbous moon. Smoke. The gin your wife sent from New Jersey, colored mint green with food dye disguised in a bottle of mouthwash. Take a long swig of it. Take the edge out of your knuckles. Let it blur your vision into a tremor of lights. The explosions in the distance are not your own. In these long hours before dawn on the banks of the Tigris River, let her sleep. In her dream, your eyes are pools of rifle oil. You unsheathe the bayonet from its scabbard while she waits, on a mattress of sand and foam there in the motor pool. She waits to kiss bullets into your mouth. So we're here to also talk about some ugly things, right? We're not going to just turn away and let someone else deal with it, right? When I did sexual assault training in the military, in the Army, that was over 10 years ago now. It felt to me a lot like checking the box. And not just a lot like checking, it was checking the box, you know? When I was in Kuwait, well, I'm not going to switch this yet. I think this should be drummed home. I read this poem last time I came here, and I purposely did it again because I just think it's so important. You know, if someone, an American citizen, who has signed up and raised their hand and made that oath and said, yes, I will give my life, I'll give the last measure, I'll give the last pint of blood, my last breath, maybe to save your life at a certain moment, right? If they are under assault, whatever that assault may be, from another service member, that is not a check the box kind of conversation. You know? Because we can all go on in our lives if it hasn't happened to us. And the rest of their lives, they're going to be back home sometimes. And I went to the VA medical hospital in Palo Alto. There's a specific unit there that treats women who've been sexually assaulted in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's also a unit there that nobody talks about very much that treats men, service members, who've also been sexually assaulted in Iraq and Afghanistan. Checking the box. When I was in Kuwait, and we left the country, we'd finished our time in country, we went there. It was kind of cool. They had a little Connex where you could take your boots off. I think it was a way to civilize us all because we were all kind of savage for a bit. And I remember we walked in, and you could chill out. There was music playing. There was like a little library. And then at one point, they had us all gather with our uniforms, and there was like a circus tent. We sat shoulder to shoulder in these little awkward benches, and they give us those little, do you know those little pencils they have in like elementary school? Why do they keep making those? Like, who designed that? Thought, this is a good idea. You know, they keep making them. They gave us those, right? And then they gave us a sheet of paper like this with nothing and then each of us, there's about, 400 to 600 of us crammed in. They do this briefing over and over. And we're I don't want my elbows bumping in him, but I want to write it. This is a really important piece of paper that I'm responding to, and I'm going to sign with this silly little pencil. You know, what it is, well, I'll give it to you the way I got it, which was there was a guy whose job is to check that box, right? And he would walk around saying, if you have seen dead bodies, check the box for dead bodies. If you have seen, what is that? You know? Part of the reason I bring this up is because it should go right with our training. I'm not sure exactly how you guys roll, but anytime I was in a unit, went out to the field, whether it was an exercise or it was the real deal, when you come back, there's an AAR, right? You all sit around and talk about it, and then you're supposed to, unless you're on another mission, boom, you got to go. But at some point, you're going to stop, and you're probably going to do the thing we all dread doing, right? the layout of equipment, and you lay it all out, and there's too much of it, and you look for stuff that's broken and stuff that's missing, and you fix it or you replace it, right? So your gear, the stuff that keeps you alive and keeps others alive and does its work on the battlefield is ready. And then maybe you go home for a weekend, go see your family and friends, go have a nice meal, enjoy yourself, blow some steam off, be careful, but come back Monday and we're gonna do a PT test, because Turner, you fat bastard, you really need to start running some more. You know what I mean? So, you assess the body and you say, what do we need to improve? What do we need to fix? What's broken? And then we go from there. But the thing that runs the equipment, the thing that runs the human body, is often not assessed and talked about, Like what's going on in your head and in your heart. So I'm going to dive back into some poems as I promised, and some passages here, but I recommend one small thing you might do is you might journal, as I did when I was overseas. You don't have to journal every day or anything like that if you're not that disciplined, but I didn't. But it might be a useful place for you to have just a space for yourself to sort of think out loud, even if it's not something you share with others. And I know some friends of mine who, with the units they've served in, they've bought a whole bunch of notebooks and just given them out to all their soldiers and stuff to say, hey, to give them a space for them to think in, and to promote that same kind of idea. You might consider something like that. So, you guys doing all right? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do up here? Is this right? Yeah? Okay. I think I'm going to tell no, I'm not going to tell a story. Oh, okay. All right. Story time with Brian. Okay. Because a lot of this stuff you might think, okay, well, Brian sounds like he was really squared away. He seems to know like soldier stuff, and he knows what an AAR is or something. He knows about layouts and that kind of thing. He went to combat and came back, survived it, because of the people to my left and right, to be honest. Imagine Sergeant Turner before he was that Sergeant Turner, right? The guy on the cover of the book. You guys can see it from there, I'm sure. But if you look at the cover of this book, oh, there he is, right there on the right. That's me standing in the desert. Before that, I was in Oregon at one point. We were training, and I remember the squad leader, this is the first time for me to be an acting squad leader, and the squad leader had gone because his grandmother was sick and went to Arkansas to see her. So suddenly I'm thrust in the role of being in charge. We're doing a night mission up ahead in the woods in Oregon where it's raining. Up ahead there's a gun emplacement, a hill with some machine guns. It's surrounded with barbed wire, heavily defended. We're going to take it out, our platoon, right? And we're walking through the woods in squad formations. There's 4 squads, a weapons squad with heavy weapons, and 3 other light infantry squads, mine included. And I'll reel you back real quickly to basic training, where an Italian guy had stolen a Snickers bar from the local PX. And then he got booted out real quickly, never made it through basic training. But he and I had been washing, all of us have been washing our clothes in the washing machines and stuff. Somehow, Lozano's pants got mixed up with mine, or at least I got Lozano's pants instead of mine, right? It says it on the back part of the waistband. And they're too big for me. He was more of a fat bastard than I am, and it was wide, but he was about the same height, so they were pretty, and they were new pants, so I kept them. I didn't make a lot of money, and so when I was going to do this exercise, I thought, well, I know we're going to trash up these pants. I'll use these ones that aren't that great, right? So, and then I also thought, being a sergeant, the whole idea of being a leader is always being one step ahead of everyone else a bit. So as a sergeant or a team leader, my job was to always be ready and then helping others to get ready and chewing them out for not being ready already, that kind of thing. So when I was in the PX, I remember buying this Velcro belt because I thought, this is smart. Because everybody else is doing the weave of the belt, and I'm already moving on to tying my boots, right? They're still doing the belt. And just all these little increments get you ready before anyone else, But what I didn't count on was rain. Like Velcro and rain are not like really compatible. I don't know if you know that, but it's a good thing to keep in mind, It might come in handy someday. As it did with me. I had a little Phil Collins push-to-talk mic with a headphone like this at the time. We're walking through the woods. I got my weapon and night vision goggles right here, tied onto my my cape, my helmet, and suddenly a fake artillery round goes off. Boom! We all hit the deck. I hit it hard because I'm Sergeant Turner and I'm high speed. Bam! Hit the deck. We're going to start assessing the situation. Hit it so hard I didn't realize that I jammed mulch and dirt and stuff into the, I pushed the talk mic thing, so it's frozen down and I can't click it. I don't know that it's not working. I'm hot micing continuously, right? So, and Sergeant Zubrick, my team leader, has already ran off to attack the objective. And then the platoon just disintegrated in chaos, going off all over the place. I grabbed a couple people. I had part of my squad, and I grabbed a couple others, and thought, okay, let's make a plan. Okay, we can see it's over here. Here, boom, boom, boom. Okay, they're setting up base of fire. We're going to flank to the right. We're going to assault the objective, join the attack force in progress. I look ahead, and I see two guys standing. This one guy standing really tall, just looking around in a clearing. I say, hey, who's that? He's like, it's Gutierrez, Sergeant. I'm like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know, there's a war going on, you know, like you hear the big, and he's like, well, where's the gun? You hear the big gun over there? Yeah, go behind them and tell them you're coming and join them. He's like, roger that, Sergeant, took off. And so I went with the rest of them, we're going to keep flanking, right? We're moving ahead. But the problem is the Velcro has fallen. I mean, it's not working. And those Lozano's pants are too big, and they are falling off my body. So I'm running, but I have to hold my pants because they keep falling. And I'm holding my weapon, but I got to use the mic, and I only have two hands. So every now and then I have to, like, drop my mic, and my pants start to fall, and I'm like, you know, fucking Zubrick, where are you? Zubrick, Zubrick. You know, I'm trying to get the rest of the team, figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, what they're hearing is, goddamn Zubrick, goddamn pants, goddamn pants. You know, and I'm running, and as I get a little closer, you know, some of our squad starts getting hit, and the OCs, the officers in charge, say, oh, you've been hit, and we start losing people along the way. And we end up, there's Roundtree, who, one of the shortest guys in the platoon, and he had this massive machine gun. So he and I, we get up to the wire, the breach. We're near the end of this mission. We get to the wire, I see the breach, I look up. Oh, I forgot to say one important thing. As we're running up to the breach, I can see a couple of trees up ahead with my night vision goggles, and I'm running, Sergeant Turner, I'm going to go through them. But what I can't see is the scrabble of branches in between. I hit them so hard, it breaks the mount, the nod mount, but it's tied off, don't worry, it's $1,000, I'm not going to lose it. It's tight. Now it's hanging, but my pants are falling, I got to look, and I got to talk, Sergeant Zubrick, where are you? Trying to, you know, it's impossible, holding my weapon with my right hand, I'm ready with this thing, though. And we get to the wire, we're laying down, me and Roundtree, we're looking, assessing the situation, grab my nods, trying to say, okay, I can see a lane that's marked in the breach, we got to go through it. I think, okay, hey, Roundtree, combat roll to the left, pop up, go through the breach. I combat roll, pop up, but I didn't roll far enough. Thought I did, but I didn't. I run forward because I'm Sergeant Turner, you know, and I fall down into this ditch right on top of the concertina wire. And by this time, I'm a little bit irked, you know, kind of furious, and it's just kind of a moment of sheer stupidity, which made no sense at all. Just kind of like a furious, like Wolverine, kind of, damn it, you know, kind of just mad at this wire, and cut myself up too, of course, and definitely ruined not only the bottoms but the top, and then I looked up as I was still floating in the concertina, and I could see two shadowy figures, the OCs. They had their arms folded over, and they're looking at me. They didn't even talk to each other, just looking. I could hear what they were thinking, just like, look at this guy. Wow. You know, like, do you see this? You know, and the thing is, I extricated from it. You know, Roundtree helped me out of the wire. We went through the breach, and we drove off the last defenders on the hill. We took the hill, me and Roundtree. And I remember thinking, my God, is this, because we're training for war, right? Like me and Roundtree, with my pants falling off and the nods and goddamn Zubrick, you know. Like we're saving America, you know? You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, I just want you to know when you feel like that in training, there's kind of a reason for that, to make it just impossible and so hard. But those moments in weird ways really do get you ready for times if you are called upon at some point to do difficult things. So I wish you well in that process, you know. Don't kick yourself too much when you fall down. Just get back up, you know. So if your pants are falling down, you know, just for God's sakes, don't buy Velcro, you know. Okay, I think time-wise we're doing pretty. I've talked forever. I think I'm going to read a passage about a raid in Iraq. It's about 5 minutes. What do you think, Don? Is that going to work? Okay, I got you. I was in Mosul much of the time that I was in Iraq, and it's in the northern part of Iraq. It's now under IS control, unless I've missed something. But we used to conduct a lot of raids, so we would oftentimes several back-to-back, or two back-to-back, maybe in one night, and over a series of months, mostly in the cities, sometimes out in the countryside in farmhouses and villages and things. We'd sweep entire villages, that kind of thing. But I'm going to read a short passage. I put a little note here that says, "Holy shit," right here. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll live up to that. But it starts out a little bit professional, and then it goes into what might be happening during a raid. The briefing for the night's raid is underway. A 5-paragraph operations order. Officers and sergeants view photographs and aerial footage of the target house, some of them taking notes in small green pocketbooks, some of them counting the number of houses on the block, some of them drinking coffee, some of them leaning their heads slowly from side to side to crack and release the pressure between vertebrae. While the briefing revolves around triggermen and bomb makers, call signs and radio frequencies, 9-line medevac requests and medical assets, the soldiers outside prepare a terrain model in the hardpan between hooches. Colored lengths of yarn mark phase lines for the raid. Torn pieces of cardboard from an MRE package serve as houses, arranged to resemble a suburban street. I love that I don't have to explain what that MRE package is to you guys, you know. And the men laugh and joke with one another while they create the model. They don't talk about the people who live in the target house, third cardboard square from the left. They don't talk about the men eating dinner in that house now, the children who run in through the front door, the sound of their laughter as they turn and run upstairs, their mother calling to them from another room. They just place a small cardboard square on the dirt, a small square that cannot hold the beds they know are inside, the dishes in the cupboards, miniature bottles of Russian-made medicine stored in the refrigerator door, photographs from the 60s and 70s in frames on wooden tables, photographs of weddings and lakeside trips and afternoon visits from family members long since dead stored in the bedroom dresser, nightgowns, bras, panties, sheets folded and neatly stacked. The soldiers stand around the model and wait for their sergeants and officers to tell them who it is inside those small squares that they might kill tonight, who it is inside those squares that might lead them into their last breath. The soldiers stand over the terrain model and peel plastic wrappers from boxes of Marlboro 100s and unfiltered Camels, unhinging their Zippos to burn tobacco and take the smoke of it all into their lungs. Soon, they'll have to prep the explosive charges, or demo as they're called, as well as the enemy prisoner of war kits, the EPWs. Team leaders will conduct their final pre-combat inspections, refilling Camelbacks, oiling the bolts of their weapons. The drivers will fire up their engines and check their gauges. Across town, a small child kisses her father on his cheek. The soldiers inhale the harsh smoke, lean their heads back, and exhale up toward the dead surface of the moon. And though they darken into silhouettes as the night draws on, the soldiers brighten inside. They crackle in nerve and flame. The gas stations and laundromats and unemployment lines and hardware stores of America disappear. For now, they are soldiers. They're the giants standing over the model of someone's life. Humming with adrenaline, they stand in the great sweep of history, past, passing, and yet to come, and take it all in. The soldiers enter the house. The soldiers enter the house. The soldiers, determined and bored and searing with adrenaline, enter the house with shouting and curses and muzzle flash, det cord, and 5.56 millimeter ball ammunition. The soldiers enter the house with pixelated camouflage, flex cuffs, chem lights, door markings, duct tape. The soldiers enter the house with ghillie suits and Remington sniper rifles, Phoenix beacons and night vision goggles, lasers invisible to the naked eye, rotor blades, Hellfire missiles, bandoliers strapped across their chests. The soldiers enter the house one fire team after another, and they fight brutal, dirty, nasty, the only way to fight. Soldiers enter the house with the flag of their nation sewn under the sleeves of their uniforms. They enter the house with Toledo and Baton Rouge imprinted on the rubber soles of their desert combat boots. They enter the house and shout, "Honey, I'm home," and "Here's Johnny." Soldiers enter the house with conversations of Monday Night Football and the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. They enter the house with cunt and cooch, cockwallet, and butcher's bin on their tongues, these obscenities. The soldiers enter the house with paperbacks in their cargo pockets. Starship Troopers and Black Hawk Down, we were soldiers once and young. The soldiers enter the house straight out of Compton or with Eminem saying, look, if you had one shot or one opportunity. They enter the house with their left foot. They enter the house the way one enters cemeteries or unclean places. The soldiers enter the house with their insurance policies filled out, signed, beneficiaries named, last will and testament sealed in manila envelopes half a world away. They enter the house having just ordered a new set of chrome mufflers on eBay for the Mustang stored under blankets in a garage north of San Francisco. The soldiers enter the house with only 9 credits earned toward an associate's degree in history from the University of Maryland. They kick in the door and enter the house with the memory of backyard barbecues on their minds. They kick in the door while cradling their little sisters in their arms. They kick in the door and pull in the toboggans and canoes from the hillsides and lakes of Minnesota. They kick in the door and bring in the horses from the barn, hitching into the kitchen table inside. The soldiers enter the house with Mrs. Ingram from 2nd grade at Vinland Elementary School and Mrs. Garupa from AP English at Madera High. The soldiers kick in the door and enter the house with their arms filled with all the homework they ever did, and they enter the house to sit down and consider the quadratic equation, the Socratic method. The soldiers enter the house to sit cross-legged on the floor as the family inside watches on, watches how the soldiers interrogate them, saying, how do I say the word for friend in Arabic? How do I say the word love? How do I tell you that Private Miller is dead, that Private Miller has holes in the top of his head? And what is the word for ghosts in Arabic? And how many live here? And are the Ghost Bath Party supporters? Are the ghosts in favor of the coalition forces? Are the ghosts here with us now? And can you tell us where the ghosts are hiding? And where the ghosts keep their weapons cache? And where they sleep at night? And what can you tell us about Alibaba? Is there an Alibaba in the neighborhood? The soldiers enter the house and take off their dusty combat boots and pull out an anthology of poetry from an assault pack, Iraqi Poetry Today, and commence reading poems aloud. The soldiers say, this is war then, all is well. They say, the missiles bomb the cities and the airplanes bid the clouds farewell. The soldiers remove their flak vests and turn off their radios, smile, stretch their arms, one of them yawning, another asking for a second cup of chai. The soldiers give chocolates to the frightened little children in the shadows of the house. Soldiers give chocolates to the frightened little children and teach them how to say fuck you and how to flip off the world. The soldiers recite poetry as trays of chai and tea and cigarettes are brought into the room. The soldiers, there in the candlelight of the front room, with Iraqi men of military age zip-tied with flex cuffs, kneeling, sandbags over their heads, read verses from Iraqi Poetry Today. The soldiers switch off their night vision goggles and set their padded helmets on the floor while the frightened little children pretend to eat the chocolates they've been given, and mothers shushing them when they begin to cry. And the soldiers, men from Kansas and California, Tacoma and College Station, these soldiers remove the gloves from their hands to show the frightened little children how they mean them no harm, how American the soldiers are, how they might bring in a pitcher of water for the bound and blinded men to drink from soon, perhaps, if there's time, and how they read the poetry for them, their own poetry in English, saying, between time and time, between blood and blood, all is well. All is well, the soldiers say. The soldiers kick in the doors and into the house and zip-tie the men of military age and shush the women and the frightened little children and drink the spoon sugar stirred into the hot chai and remove their stinking boots and take off their flak vests and stack their weapons and turn off their night vision goggles and say to the frightened little children, softly, with their palms held out in the most tender of gestures they can offer, their eyes as brown as the hills that lead to the mountains or as blue as the rivers that lead to the sea, saying, all is well, little ones, all is well. It's an ugly business, you know? That is such a sanitized version. That's easy. You may be asked to do very difficult things, and I have no answer for that. I have no guidance for you. But one thing I would say is that, and you've surely heard this here, is that history can instruct on how you might approach the future, but you're going to have to figure out whole new solutions to problems we can't imagine. Right now, how long have we been fighting in Iraq, for example? Can we talk here? Is this okay? Can we shout it out? You guys were shouting out earlier in the back row. You guys are awesome back there. What's that? Since what year was that it started? 2003? March 2003, somewhere around there? Ah, you're wrong. Who else? Wrong. There's a guy named Patrick Buchanan who used to have a show. I loved how you go, wrong answer, and you move on to the next person. Oh, March 19th, 2002. Wrong answer. Keep going. 99, well, 91. The reason I say this is because here in America, I'm not really saying I did say you're wrong, but I don't really mean that. I'm kind of, just trying to pull a question that I have for myself out loud and share it with you. If we were Iraqi, when would we say the war with America started? And how long has it been going? Would we use words like sanctions? Would we use words like, phrases like, during sanction years, there were low-level engagements that involved sometimes the bombing of installations? Would we say bombing installations? Oh, the Swedish are overhead, and every now and then they bomb some of our installations. If they bombed here, that would probably be the right phrase. But when they bomb and kill somebody like your uncle who has a name, then those aren't enemy combatants or targets. Those are people you call by name, It might not feel like a sanction. So my point being is, from my point of view, I think we've been at war and we're almost at our silver anniversary. We're a country that's we have great endurance for war. And feels like the dead want to hum with us. They're all over there. Do you see them? There's a few seats here with the dead, just a few seats. There aren't enough for them. And maybe that's the sound of a plane bringing the dead back in. How many more planes will come with coffins inside of them? How much endurance do we have? It's a hard thing to raise your hand and say, I'm gonna fight for my country, And I guess what I'm wondering is, and I know some of you good folks are going to find ways to do this, is that find ways not only to fight in a war zone, but find ways to try to stop the fighting in a war zone. How do we learn the word friend, and how do we make actual friends? I went to Japan a couple years ago. I hope to go back again. We have a great friendship, an abiding friendship with the Japanese people. How did that happen? How can we do that now with people who speak different languages? I wish you well in that process. For those of you who come back home, and for your airmen, I always get the terminology wrong, but the good souls that you work beside, those who work for you, work beside you, and you work for, if there's a way I can help in the future in their process of coming home, which is a recurring theme in America, please, that cell phone number or through the publisher, contact me, and I'll do my best to help you with that work. But do something. Thank you very much.